Hi, Renee Rosnes. Welcome to Backstage at CapU.
Thank you. Great to be here with you.
I'm connecting with you from New York City. I hardly know where to start with you. There's so much I want to talk about, and you've got a lot going on right now with starting up touring again and lots of great projects, including Artemis and your brand new record, which is so great.
Thank you.
But I want to go back to the beginnings, Renee, back to your origins of jazz. And I actually have someone I want to bring in on the call who would like to talk about this. So I feel like this is your life. I want to bring in a surprise guest for
Oh
you.
my gosh. Hi, Reb.
Hi, Renee.
Great to see you. What a wonderful surprise.
I know. I was so excited to hear about this opportunity.
This is a wonderful moment to orchestrate. I love this. Renee went to Handsworth Secondary in beautiful North Vancouver, very close to where I am at Capilano University. Renee, you credit this experience with how you got into jazz, so it was a pretty important part of your life.
Absolutely. Yes, I often ponder if I didn't happen to have Bob as a music director, would I be doing what I'm doing now? And, it's up in the air. My parents didn't listen to jazz. So really the first time I heard it was when I was in high school.
I mean, I knew what a jewel in the crown you were right from the beginning, really.
Wow, that's sweet. One of the first things I transcribed was Oscar Peterson with the Singers Unlimited, his trio. With, by the way, Louis Hayes on drums and George Mraz, who just passed away last week, on the bass.
Ah,
And we did a version of their piece called Catherine.
right.
And I remember taking that recording home and trying to decipher what Oscar was doing. And because of my ear, which is, I've been blessed with a great ear, perfect pitch, I was able to hear the notes. So I remember even what the sheet of paper looked like, the manuscript. I wrote all the notes out, just a bunch of black notes. I
Yeah.
had no idea what the rhythms were. I kind of guessed where the bar lines were.
Sure.
And that's kind of how I started to figure out what
Your
this
first
was.
transcription.
Yeah, that's right. It's a pretty weird one to start with, really.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and listen to that recording because I actually don't remember Catherine,
Yeah.
how it goes. I remember the title, but I don't remember the tune. So,
It goes to
oh yes, oh yeah, yeah, I do. Your,
I'll
your
never forget.
your memory is incredible, Renee.
Not really.
You
It's
have,
failing me these days, but I do remember that.
Bob, you must have started so many people on this track of music as a career, but watching Renee and how successful and how she blossomed so spectacularly in her career in New York, it must give you enormous pride. And I understand you guys have kept in touch over the years too, which is
Mhm.
I certainly haven't kept in touch with my high school teachers. They didn't
Well,
lead
I
me
mean,
down this path, though.
yeah, of course. I mean, it's a huge honor for me to have had Renee keep in touch with me. I mean, I'm blessed. I really feel blessed that
It
she's
goes
done
both
that.
ways. It goes both ways. I'm blessed to have you in my life still as well.
Yeah.
You're also an extraordinary person, Reb. You have a real, true gift for teaching and for imparting knowledge and really zeroing in on what each particular student needs. And I think it's not a coincidence that so many of your students have gone on to be so successful in the jazz field. I mean, there's Brandy Disterheft, there's Darcy James Argue, Lila Bialy, myself, and then others, Tom Cocklow, for instance,
Mhm.
Kimball Sykes. I mean, so
Yeah.
many, so many of your students.
See all those CDs behind me?
Well, I have to send you the latest one that just came out.
Oh, I'd love it. with your good wishes on it, of course.
Always. And Bill has a new one coming out too. It's
Yes, I saw that in the Wall Street Journal interview.
That's right. That's coming out
November, Rena?
Yeah, that's right. November 12th.
Yeah. There's so much musical talent in your family, Renee. You and Bill Charlap. It boggles my mind.
There's a lot of music around us always, yes.
I was curious to ask, like, what's your studio setup? Do you guys have separate studios? Do you practice together? Do you play together when you're at home in your home studios?
We have two pianos nestled in the living room, and we take turns practicing. I mean, usually it's not a huge issue because he's gone a lot, I'm gone a lot. We have time to, he's teaching also. He's the director of jazz studies at William Patterson University, so he's gone several days a week. So I have a lot of freedom to work, and I make time, obviously, when we're both here together. We share the pianos. Ideally, it would be great to have two separate, studios, but that's not the case right now. But during the pandemic, we both had so much time at home together. It was so unusual. And that was really what enabled me to get to work and write so much during the last year. I wanted to make use of being at home so much and having an unusual amount of solitude to compose, which I don't usually have because life, how life is, you're hustling and bustling everywhere, and you don't really have that time. So it was a real treat to be able to get a lot of, writing done, most of which the pieces are featured on the new CD. And then you know what? Somebody else you turned me on to, Reb, was Nikki Weber.
She was she worked for CBC as a singer for years.
Okay.
And then she was a great arranger, a great vocal arranger. She arranged everything that you sang with those groups.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a woman who's probably 93 now.
She's 93 and living in Sechelt.
Yeah. But that had a big impact on me too, no pun intended, because the group that she put together with myself and about 4 other singers was called Impact. And we sang, one of the first exciting gigs I ever did was when I was a teenager with Nikki singing at what used to be the Plazaz, the Jazz Plazaz room at the International Plaza Hotel in Marine Drive in North Vancouver. It's now just an apartment building, but it used to be a major jazz club in the late 70s. And they would have, Sarah Vaughan would come for 2 weeks. Ella Fitzgerald, Oscar Peterson.
Was there.
Yes. Tony Bennett was there. It's funny, I actually played for him very briefly then. Anyway, so we opened up for Ginger Rogers. Ginger Rogers came to do a show whereby she was really just sitting on a stool and reminiscing about all her, experiences in the film world and with Fred Astaire, et cetera, all her movies. And they had a whole slideshow and people would ask questions from the audience. So Nikki had us learn all these songs from those shows, Top Hat, White Tie and Tails, various other pieces that Ginger used to dance to with Fred Astaire. And we did that for 2 weeks. So we thought we were on top of the world. We dressed.
No kidding, what a great gig that was.
I'm feeling like I'm learning so much, Renee. What a great start you got. You got these amazing teachers and these great opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's so many more stories I could bring up. I mean, just briefly, I was also a violinist, and I began lessons at age 5 and carried through until I finished high school. So I was a member of the Vancouver Youth Orchestra, which also played a major role in my musical life. Every Saturday we'd go and rehearse in downtown Vancouver, and I made some very close friends that I'm still friends with today from that experience. But playing classical repertoire of all sorts, and sitting in the string section and hearing all those beautiful harmonies and listening to all the different instruments. I mean, all of those experiences played a major role in who I am and what I hear, you know, and some of my abilities to arrange or to write. I'm sure the seed, the genesis of that is, you know, goes back to those days.
Well, it's
I
made me
think a lot of a lot of people don't realize how the elite jazz piano players, the world-class players like Renee, play classical music all the time for their own enjoyment and technique.
I mean,
yeah.
look at Chick Corea, just
Sure.
as one example. You know, he
Yeah.
would perform some of these pieces live all the time. And
Sure.
then it would be interesting because he would take a Scarlatti piece and then he would play it and then he would improvise with it.
Yeah.
And that was fascinating as well.
Bob, it's been too long since we saw you at CAP, but we have a show in October, the John Lee Quartet with Carl Allen, who I know Renee's just worked with on her
Oh,
album.
that's
Eric
wonderful.
Reed on piano, so we do have some out-of-town guests coming in. Corey Weeds on saxophone.
Yeah. I'll be there.
Okay.
And also, Bob, I'll be with Neil Swainson in November.
I
Uh,
know. I've got that date.
good.
It's circled in red on my
Good.
calendar.
And that's on my queue to talk to you about, Renee, is all that you're up to in the next couple of months about your
Okay.
upcoming tour. Okay, bye, Bob.
Take
Thanks
care.
so
Bye.
much.
So great to see you. Thank you for
You
coming
too.
on.
Yeah.
And give a lot to Maggie.
Love you, Renee.
Love you too.
Oh,
Bye.
that was wonderful.
Well, thank you for that.
So let's go to the period that you dive into the Vancouver jazz scene. So how was that whole experience, your first few years in the jazz world?
It was a wonderful time. There was just so many clubs, so much music going on, so many great musicians around. Of course, Hugh Fraser was in town, and Phil Dwyer was there, you know, coming up as well. And then Fraser McPherson, Wyatt Ruther, you know, Oliver Gannon, so many different great uh, mentors to me at the time. I was lucky enough to begin working with some of them and doing some of my own gigs at the time. I was playing with Perry White frequently, Campbell Riga often, Rudy Petschauer on drums, who was my boyfriend at the time. And the two of us decided to try and apply for a Canada Council grant to come to New York to live and study for the period of a year. So that's how that came about. It was the end of 1985 that we left Vancouver in the fall.
So going from it seems like you were welcomed into the Vancouver jazz scene, and how was the transition to move to the, you know, the big scene in New York City, where it's, you know, there's obviously so much more happening and so much more competition, I guess, for lack of a better word.
You know, my mindset at the time was more about learning and being a student. I did not have the ambition at the time to try and break into the scene or become, you know, a star or something like that. That was the furthest thing from my mind. My goal in moving to New York was to study, take lessons, go out and hear a lot of music, and play as much as I could with peers, people I could, you know, make friends with and play with. That's really what it was all about for me. So I never thought of it in those terms of trying to break in to the scene. And it wasn't until, I guess, about a year after I was here, I was doing things like playing at the after hours jam session at the Blue Note Club in New York City. And so I was doing that every night, which enabled me to go and hear whoever was performing there gratis, and then hang around and do the gig. I met a lot of wonderful musicians and you know, people of like mind, studying just like I was, and you know, playing great, and just I was fascinated and excited, thrilled by it all. And when I began to actually work, um, I knew then that it would be difficult to pull myself away from this area, or to pull myself away from the opportunities that were presenting themselves to me, because I knew that I was improving as a musician. And if I took myself out of this context, I wasn't so sure that I would, you know, progress in the same way.
You've had a storied career. It's amazing, and you're an amazing musician.
Thank you.
Which brings me to, I thought it would be fun to play some music together, and you graciously accepted to come up with a for us. So that's good. So if you're up for that, why don't we listen to
Sure,
some of your choices? So
sure.
just gonna bring that up.
Nights alone when the telephone brings no news. I found this picture of you. I found a promise untrue. It's from you. Without the help of time.
Shannon had a real expressiveness. She had incredible facility, and she really, as a great singer does, she told a story. She knew how to deliver a lyric, and I think it's all over this album. Her gifts shine through all over the whole album. And that particular piece that we were listening to was called it's called From You. The album is called On a Mountain. And several of her compositions are featured on this recording. And I don't know that many people really understood what a great composer she was. And so hopefully this album will enable people to you know, just appreciate the talent that she had, even though she's no longer with us. Brian Dickinson, the great pianist in Toronto, who was Shannon's partner, shared with me recently that even while she was ill, she was still writing.
The producer on this record,
Yeah,
it's coming out. It's finally getting released. Pretty much 20 years after it was recorded.
that's right.
She grew up in Vancouver, and did you guys connect in your early
We
days?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. She was one of my good pals here when I lived in Vancouver, and I would accompany her sometimes, and we even sang together. There was a group which was actually an offshoot of one of the singing groups you were talking about with Nikki Weber, but we had a quartet called the Chromatones.
Ah,
and,
okay.
and I remember we sang with the Bobby Hales band at the PNE one whole summer.
She taught here at Cap when it was Capilano College.
Right.
Lots of students have really fond memories of her as a great teacher, as well as a great artist and
Yes.
composer.
I think the release is October 15th, if I'm not wrong. So that's coming up very soon.
Okay, track number 2. That's beautiful.
Isn't it gorgeous? Of course, that's the great Oscar Peterson playing
Is it like no? It could be nobody else but Oscar Peterson. Like is he that distinct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, of course he had a lot of influences, Nat King Cole and Art Tatum. But Oscar's Oscar, and even though Oscar was influenced and loved those other musicians, he really had his own thing and his own way of touching the instrument, and his own sensibilities of harmony. I mean, I consider him a genius, and especially to do with his harmony. He just played things that are still, to me, still state of the art. One of the reasons I chose this piece, of course, Oscar was one of my very first influences. We mentioned him earlier when Reb was talking with us. But I think when people think about Oscar, they think about, he was a lion. he had such an amazing technique at the piano, and he could play spitfire runs and play stride, and he would take your breath away with the speed in which he could execute things. But what appeals to me about this particular track is the fact that it's so intimate and it has a very interior feeling to it. And you don't always hear that on the most popular recordings of Oscar. Now, this recording was made as part of a collection. There's a whole series. This is called the MPS series. This was from My Favorite Instrument. I think it was later released as exclusively for my friends. And it was recorded in the Black Forest in the living room of the producer, Hans Brunner Schwer. And I think you can just hear that he's the solitude of him being alone at the piano in a beautiful setting in the forest. I think it really added to the performances on these particular recordings. And the recording goes on for about 6 minutes total. So there's a lot to lavish in while listening to
From
it.
1968, the recordings from the great pick. I didn't know this record, so now and the whole record it's a solo record. So
Yes.
I think it was
Yeah.
his first solo record.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yes. Yeah.
Did you get to meet Oscar Peterson?
Oh, I did. In fact, I played for him. It was an event honoring Oscar by the Royal Conservatory of Music. And I played with Dave Young and Terry Clark. And one of the pieces I played for him was Ballad to the East, which was one of his another beautiful composition of his. And I was so nervous. And when I met him afterwards, I think I teared up. I had the emotion of meeting this man who was my hero for so many years, finally getting to come face to face with him, and just the emotional release of having played in front of him, which was terrifying. But then when I sat down at the piano to play, really the music just kind of took over. It was most difficult before you go on stage, and then when you're up there playing, you're just dealing with the music and getting into it and enjoying it. But it was certainly a huge honor to be playing for him and to meet him as well. There's after that, I actually also played another concert, which was in Mississauga, which was honoring him, and he was there as well then. Had a chance to talk to him more. But it's lovely now to be friendly with his wife, Kelly Peterson, who's done such a beautiful job with her husband's legacy, recording an album, more than one record of all pianists playing his material, Oscar's compositions, which are more rarely heard. And then we've done concerts around the world with various pianists. Kenny Barron was involved, Gerald Clayton, myself, Bill, Robbie Botos. So it's been a wonderful project, and she's got more things up her sleeve that are yet to be released to the public. So